movies, you are working for the director, the star, and the studio. I mean, that's what the feature writer does. And at different times, those are all your bosses, or one of them is in charge. But it's less, as much as it's as important as it is for it to be our vision when we're at the script stage, it's ultimately we're creating something for them to go make a movie. If you're writing television, you're in charge. So you're the one hiring that director, you're the one running the other writers, you're the one hiring the actors. If an actor is mean in features, they fire the writer. If an actor is mean in television, the TV writer kills the actor and kills the character. And there's the difference. So
that's really great. Early on, he was in Warner Brothers Film Distribution, and he was teaching a class at BU, and he was saying, look, if you want to be in this business, you have to give 3 to 5 years. That's the apprenticeship. Most people, they quit at 2.5, and he was absolutely right. Most of the friends that I went, were in that sort of film program, quit at 2.5 years, and they went back to be teachers and lawyers, and we were just stupid enough to keep going. But I think if you'd said, look, it's going to take 10 years of this and heartbreak and watching your friends go on to have their careers in whatever business they've chosen to, that's easier than yours, it's pretty tough. But if you love doing it, you love doing it and you're stuck with it. So you may as well do it and kind of learn everything. Write movies. When you write a book, it's a book, and the risks are smaller. When you make a movie, and it's, I mean, on Iron Man, there's 1,000 people, working, and you see the enormous resources that go into this. You have to kind of realize what sort of the system will take and what it won't take. And if you go home and you just write your own sort of thing, and it's completely, it's something that's 800 million to produce, or it's not, the realities of the film business are they are what they are, and you should know that. I don't think it should. I mean, you should just have it in the back of your mind. It shouldn't say, oh, I'm not going to write that because they're not looking for that right now. That's not what I'm saying. But just, it is very useful to know the business and to know what it is, what that animal is that you're really trying to, in essence, program.
No money. And so that's the challenge. So if you are trying to write movies for studios, think about what has that studio made before, because the marketing departments in some ways now really run what movies get made. So if that marketing department has already made a movie about that, they're going to say, we've already done that, even if it's still a good idea. They're also going to be aware of their competitors. So although you don't want to sit there and say, hey, you have to write what you think they want, you do need to be aware of, okay, what have the big stars that you think are right for your script done recently, or who are the stars that would be right for it, and is this something that seems to fit into their sort of DNA? And then the studio standpoint, is this something that is different than what they've done before? And then the weird caveat is, you also have to kind of sit there and say, but is it similar enough to something that has been successful so they can get their heads around it? Now that's just if we're talking about on the feature side. If you're going at something then from a more indie standpoint or an original standpoint, then that's where you get to create a new mold. And that's where you get to do something original and creative, but you have to kind of understand like which path you're trying to run, because you may create one of the most wonderful stories ever, highly creative, interesting, inventive, whatever, but if you're trying to get into that studio system, they won't get it because it's not what they're tasked to look for. Does that?
Yeah, I was trying to write something that wasn't in our soul. We were trying to write for a market, and that is, it never worked. And when we finally had no success doing it, and we're like, all right, what the hell are we going to do? We're sort of fading out of this, we got our foot through the door, but they're sort of, kicking our foot back out. And then we just said, why are we doing this? Why don't we write something that we love, that is from our, that we want to go out there and do? So we're like, suddenly, it opened all these doors. And next thing we knew, we were in LA doing 50 meetings with, we had a manager, we had everything. And the lesson really was that we just went back and tried to find the love of it. Why are we doing this? It sort of, I think a lot of it begins with a soul searching. Why am I doing this? What are the reasons? Why do I want to be a writer? What am I trying to say? What am I doing? Because there's a lot easier ways to make a living. And if it's about fame or fortune, or man, there's 100 businesses where you'll put in the same amount of work and get 50 times the cash, whatever, reward or whatever. So it can't be for that, But I think when we sort of found the love of it again, hey, we really love telling stories, and here's a story that we want to see. And, we were realistic about it, but that's the one that really suddenly really got us into the through the door.
And one of the things that sometimes helps a script catch fire, right, is if you're the right writer with the right idea at the right time. And so you can't always just intellectually plan that. So it's like, it has to be something that comes from within, as Hawk said. It's so important. So when I mentioned that, you have to be aware of what's come before you, it's like if you happen to have an idea where you're like, wow, I love this idea, I know I can write it, I know I can crush it, and oh wow, it's a little better than anything that I've seen recently, then great, you can run that path. But as Hawk also mentioned, like if you write something from the heart, it might not sell, it might not be something that everybody wants to go make. They'll come up with all these reasons that, frankly, I normally disagree with the reasons they don't want to make it, because I think we'd have more original movies if they'd take the chances. But it's that highly original script that only you could have written that sometimes is what has a career start fire. Because then that's the one where people respond to that authenticity. It's where they want to meet you. And then the irony is you write something highly original, and then it gives you your chance to go do a major, massive idea like an Iron Man, but then you're able to put some of that originality and creative flair into it because they've chosen you to now go do something that the other hands might not have had that flair and that kind of genuine stuff that you guys brought to it. Does that seem? You go into these production companies and they have books and stacks of stuff, and they treat it, it's like this. They're like, oh, hold on, we've got, yeah, wait, what? And these are all like major books you guys have seen in the airport bookstores. And they're like, here, these guys are new. Turn that into a movie. And
that's the crazy part of this business. Is that pile right there should go to like Steve Zalian, to the Eric Roth, to the guys who like, really, have done this so long and are extremely, not the guy who's just, coming off the boat. But that's exactly the crazy part. But we got this book, and it was Children of Men, and we read it, and it was like, good Lord, this is like, first of all, it wasn't sort of in what P.D. James usually does, and we were like, how the hell is this going to be a movie? And then it sort of struck us that it was Casablanca set in the future, in this dystopian future, and that was like, wow, okay, that's the glass that we're going to pour the story into.
And I think that if you're writing a novel, you're the author, but on the feature side, it's understanding that you're really trying to become part of this team, and the goal is to be along for the ride as long as possible, or maybe you're a writer-director, writer-producer, but it really does in features. It takes everyone, and it is, you also mentioned on Iron Man, like he created a blueprint that over 1,000 people went to work over several years, so.
No, I think so. We really enjoy that collaborative, experience. We don't have all the answers, and when you're sitting in a room and somebody comes up with a great idea, hell, we use it. We'll steal it. But yeah, it's not. I think there's a perception that as a writer you have to protect your words. With they're chiseled in stone, and my God, if they change a sentence, they're gonna ruin it. Nonsense. I mean, certainly our experience has been the opposite. I remember even on that movie Consequence, when we sold it to HBO, the guy who Bob Conte over there, he looked at it and went, okay, now, and us being fully prepared, it's going to be a horrible experience. They're going to destroy it. He goes, now make the guy come back in the end. And you go, that is insane. And then you go, oh my God, that is freaking brilliant. That just improved the movie by like 50%. He just, in one sentence, and you realize, we're looking at it going, oh my God, all we have to do is change 7 words, and the guy's alive again, and the whole movie is changed and better and amazing. We came up with that,
And if any of you are on the other side of that, where you're the ones giving people advice, I think one of the biggest things you'll experience in any industry, any business, Hollywood as well, is if you can make it someone else's idea, then they'll own it. And that's one of the challenges of working with a star and a director, is like, and I think about that same thing if you're giving thoughts. It doesn't always work. If Hawk says, Jay, I know this is wrong, it's like, maybe I'll listen, maybe I won't. But if Hawk can help the conversation get around to the point where I see what he's saying, even though it means that 2 days later that director might come in and be like, I solved it, and you're thinking, I told you that 2 days ago, as long as it gets the story to where it needs to go, it works.
When you're writing something, don't be the editor and the writer at the same time. That's what I tell people all the time. Be the writer. Don't have the guy here say, that's crap, Have the writer, and this is, in my opinion, why writers drink a lot of wine, which I do. When you're writing, is because the editor goes away and the writer gets much bigger and it's sitting on your shoulder going, that's brilliant, keep going. And then, when you're done, then the writer goes away, and now you can bring out the editor that's sober, calculating, and look at it. But we were trying to be both at the same time for so long, like trying to write 3 perfect pages, and then 3 pages, then going back, and then revising, changing, second guessing, triple guessing. There was no flow. There was nothing. The soul, whatever was inside wasn't coming out. It was getting stocked up in all this back and
You
forth.
said writing is rewriting, and it's 100%, especially in the feature side of things. And so you have to also think about the fact that you may have to have some things in the script that you know you won't need in the movie or you know will be cut, but because you don't have the advantage of visuals and music and characters and all the things that go into a movie, sometimes there are things that you have to hit the reader on the nose with or you have to do there. So I find sometimes that people try to be a little too abstract in the script phase. It can work in a novel because you can put your voice in there as a novelist, but in the script phase it doesn't work because you've got this beautiful thing in your head, but the other reader's going to get it and be like, I don't get it. And you get upset. You're like, oh, you don't understand. It's genius. It's this. Like, I don't get it. It's not there. And so you're like, oh, okay. So you have to go put some of that there to give them the markers and the roadmap, knowing full well that the director or at a later point will be like, oh, we don't need this. Or as you said, they'll look at a scene later.
Really great point.
We don't need this at all. We get it. You get it with one look, what he thinks about her. But in a script, you got to spend half a page having him talk to his buddy. Oh, I'm nervous.
You know, what ends up on the floor there is really interesting to look at because I'll give you an example in Iron Man. We had this scene where Tony now realizes that Obadiah Stane is the one who's doing all the stuff behind his back, and there's this situation going on halfway across the world in Uzbekistan or wherever we had a fake stan of some other, but he has to go there now and deal with this on his own in his suit. So we say, okay, wait a minute. So he's in a suit here, he's in Malibu, but now we got to move him to Uzbekistan. So how fast does a suit go? Is he Mach 2? Is it Mach 1? How fast does this thing, Mach I should say, but how fast can he fly? Okay, so he would have to stop somewhere and kind of refuel, or how about we have, here's what we do. We have a party scene on a yacht, and then he takes off in the middle of the fireworks display, because then it would only be a 2-hour flight, and then he could, guess what? The audience didn't give a shit. The editor just went, cut from Tony, looking up the screen, Uzbekistan, boom, you were there. And suddenly he comes, boom. Did you say, hey, wait a minute. That's a 7-hour flight. So you're saying he's traveling at, wouldn't the suit overheat with, at Mach 3, it gets really, really hot. How would he survive? How would he go to the bathroom? Did you care? No, we didn't care about that, because that's the logic. The emotion of it was, they're killing people with my weapons. Boom, we're there. And that's really intriguing. So what ends up on the editor's floor is always, you look at these little clippings, it's like cutting your hair, you're like, Same way when I go to that keyboard, it's never like, cool, where's my cappuccino? Yeah, let's put some words down. It's never gotten easier. It's like reinventing the wheel every time for us. Just to back up a little bit, a lot of people starting off tell us, hey, I've written 10 scripts. And it's like, great, are any of them good? Write that one script that is so freaking good, where you've taken out, every word counts, as I said. The one you labor, over the one that's you've sent out to people, they've read it, it's the best freaking thing you got, and everybody tells you, wow, when they read it, they call you right away, which they did with Consequence. It was really weird. Usually people avoided us, but they called us right away and said, wow, this is really, so we're like, okay, we got something. All that, you realize it's much more powerful anyway, when you say, she was the most beautiful woman in the world. I'm referring to my wife. That's it. You don't have to say she had long, flowing locks of, and green eyes, and
Think about that. Yeah. So screenwriting is an economy of words. Every word counts, as you said. And so go back when you're looking at drafts and say, can I say this simpler, cleaner? And sometimes where you get points is you don't have to be overly witty or too writery, but it's sometimes when you realize like, oh, I can say this tighter, cleaner. You almost get. That's almost what they respect, because then they realize, oh, this person has command of the script. And that's really what I'm looking like. When I read a script, I can tell what I say is, it's no different if you're watching somebody ride a horse, frankly, or drive a car. You're like, is this person in control of this animal or machine? Yeah. And I can tell within a couple pages, does this writer have control of the script? Yeah, and it's based on their word choices and just kind of like how they set me up, and then how my eyes flowing on the page, where they're not killing me with lots of description or, It's interesting how that works. So it's a nuance that I think, even though every time we start to write, we're like, hey, we're just rookies again trying to write a script, we do at least have some of those filters that we can apply when the editor comes up, as Hawk mentioned, to remind ourselves like, whoa, like now you got to put it through that maybe professional filter.